Welcome in to the Roll Tide Rewind. We appreciate y'all joining us today. I have a new camera. Everybody say what's up. You can see me clearly now. But me and Owen today, Owen of Barnes on Bama, we are going to talk about the SEC tournament preview and predictions. We're also going to talk about the Auburn game that happened yesterday. Owen and I were in attendance for that. Owen is still in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I have since traveled back to my home in Durham, North Carolina. Long travel day today, really busy day, but we're getting this filmed because that's what we want to do. Owen, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm admittedly tired, but I'm here for the grind. That's what I'm here for. But we're going to go into, firstly, we'll talk about, Owen, where can we watch your content?
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to the channel, check it out. Barnes on Bama. We talk Alabama basketball. I have an episode similar to this, kind of breaking down Auburn and kind of Alabama's next paths. We talk about all the recruitments, the recent commitment of Jackson Richardson, and we talk basketball, and then obviously we shift over to football, but basketball is kind of my bread and butter. So this is a busy time of year on the channel.
Yeah, Jackson Richardson. Be sure to check out that video on Owen's channel. Owen has just crossed 950 subscribers. Is that right?
Yeah, we're sitting just over 950. Hope to maybe hit 1,000 by the end of March Madness if all goes well. So we're pushed to the end.
Push to the end. And Roll Tide Rewind, we just hit over 1,000. So let's get Owen to that milestone as well. But first, before we talk about the SEC tournament, let's talk about the Auburn game from yesterday. Alabama beats Auburn by, I think it was by 13 total points, but in reality, it was worse. Alabama jumped up to an 8-0 lead and almost kind of never looked back. They got to as a 19-point lead at halftime, 28-point lead as high as in the second half. LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway both looked like they had chips on their shoulders. Amari Allen looked like the first-round pick he's been touted as a lot of the times. And then even Noah Williamson had an alley-oop in this game. Like, I thought the guys played hard. Houston Millett, Latrell Wright. So I thought all the guys played hard. It looked like one team wanted to win that game. Don't you say, Owen?
Yeah, and 100%. And it really surprised me, right? I thought that Auburn, was a team with their back against the wall, pretty much had to have the game against Alabama if they wanted to feel confident in their NCAA tournament hopes. And simply put, Alabama was the only team that felt like they wanted to win the game. Alabama looked as good as they've looked all season from the rebounding perspective. I think they had a 50% offensive rebound rate, and that's against a top 10 offensive rebounding team in the entire country. I think Alabama held them to like mid 28 or 25, 28% offensive rebound. So, just great on the glass. Like you said, a lot of really good guys. You didn't even mention Jalil Bethea, and I know he only played 9 minutes, but he had two of the more athletic plays that we've seen all season. The really quick release three off the inbounds, and then one of the crazier kind of putback layups that you will have ever seen. I thought that overall, like you said, Alabama really just came energized in this game. And the stat that I think shows you how Alabama had that chip on their shoulder is something that I noticed when I was talking about this game is every player for Alabama except for two, and it's the two that came in the final minute of the game, had an offensive rebound for Alabama, and that was Preston Murphy Jr. and Jacob Martin. Every other player, so every scholarship player that played for Alabama in this game had an offensive rebound. And I think that just tells you what Alabama's mindset was in this game. It was, we have to be ready to play, we have to have our defense ready to go, and we have to take it to Auburn. And I think that they did just that. Like you said, 8-0 start and really never looked back. The game was in the 15 to 25 range for, probably 30 minutes of this game, and it really was a fairly comfortable win for Alabama.
And another thing too, Auburn lately has been being beaten because they're giving up so many three-pointers. Alabama didn't even have their best three-point shooting game. They were scoring a lot of this in the paint, and Alabama is not the best paint scoring team in the SEC. I think Alabama average is like 32 points per game in the paint, and I think we had 32 by the time it was 19 minutes left to go in the second half. So LeBaron attacked, and he knew the weaknesses, and he attacked them very, very well. Well, that is our little Auburn recap. Now we're going to move on to the SEC tournament bracket. Here it is right here. Alabama, I think for the fourth or fifth time under Nate Oates, we have a double bye. I think it's four. I think it's four.
Nate said in the Auburn recap, I think it's the 5 out of 6 because technically one of the years they didn't have the tournament, and then I believe it was 22 that we didn't have the double bye. That was the only time we didn't have a double bye. I think every other one, based on what Nate said, I think it's 5 out of 6.
And that's compared to what I was watching the early 2010s. This is awesome. We'll take this any day of the week. But Alabama gets the 2 seed. They tied with Arkansas record wise, but Alabama holds the tiebreaker because they beat Arkansas. But Alabama's path to get to the tournament final, you're looking at. So we go to the first round. We have Texas and Ole Miss. Texas beat Alabama. They play. Whoever wins that game plays Georgia. Georgia also beat Alabama. And whoever wins that game, so presumably, let's just say it's Texas and Georgia. Whoever wins that game plays Alabama. Honestly, I kind of like that we're pulling Texas and Georgia instead of like a Kentucky, because I feel like there's that revenge factor that Alabama will use, especially Alabama's going to have 6 days off, and then potentially Georgia or Texas is playing 1 or 2 games before they play Alabama. How do you think about pulling potentially Texas or Georgia?
I think this is the best scenario Alabama could ask for, right? I think that Nate Oates in a situation where you've lost to a team before, I kind of go back to like that Final Four run, even the Tennessee game this year, right? Like where Alabama's able to get the win on the road in Knoxville after Tennessee, beats you at home. Or think about that Final Four run, like Alabama, had played North Carolina, had lost to Clemson even earlier that season, and then they know how to play a team, right? I feel like Nate does a really good job when he has to play a team a second time, especially when he matches up well. And I think that Texas and Georgia, I think that we match up fairly well with. I think that there were issues related to turnovers and maybe just the letdown spot after Tennessee. You wish it wouldn't have been there, but I think that's what happened after that Georgia game. I think that Texas loss was more of a situation of Alabama just underestimated a team that they thought was pretty bad because Texas had a fairly rough record coming into that game. Texas really turned it around a little bit after that game. And I think that it was a situation where Pope really went off. I think I also look at Georgia with Cannon Catchings going off. A bit abnormal shooting nights, so to speak, out of a couple of guys for Texas and Georgia in those losses. Credit to them, they won the games, but I think that Alabama matches up really, really well with them. And honestly, that's the kind of situation where I think this is the best scenario Alabama could have pulled because you get your revenge spot. So at a minimum, your team is going to be itching to get back what you shouldn't have lost previously. And then also, I think that you also play the night game, and I think that playing the night game is a little better. I know that obviously you'd love to be the 1 seed, but I think playing the night game in Nashville is definitely fun.
Yeah, and Alabama played the night game last year against Kentucky, and that went really, really well. So, while looking at the Alabama side of the bracket, I think one positive thing that I see from just looking at it is Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Florida are on the other side of the bracket. Tennessee's supposed to have what I've read. Nate Amen is supposed to play in the SEC tournament. Whenever we played against him the first time, he had his career high in points. Now, granted, Amari Allen and Aiden Holloway both did not play in that game. And then Nate Ament played in only the first half in the last game, and then he got injured and didn't play the second half. So I think he's very much a shape-shifting player, and I'm glad we're not seeing him probably until if it is the tournament title, then that's the earliest we would see him. Vanderbilt also beat Alabama. I think Alabama does match up well versus Vanderbilt, but it is nice that that efficient team is on the other side of the bracket. However, we do have Arkansas on this side of the bracket, and we remember that game a few weeks ago where it was double overtime, 117 to 115. But if we're not talking about Arkansas, say if Alabama wins on Friday and they go to Saturday, and say they're not playing Arkansas, out of those 3 teams, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, which one poses the greatest threat to Alabama? And I think I know what the answer is going to be.
I mean, it's got to be A&M, but honestly, I think Oklahoma's a sleeper pick here. I think that A&M's probably just got to be the answer. Obviously, it was 197 the first time. They've got a whole lot of shooters. They're a team that can go off. I just I struggle, and obviously I know Alabama lost the game to Georgia and they were a fast-paced team, but like I struggle picking a team against Alabama when you're a fast-paced, do what Alabama likes to do type of team. Also, Alabama was really able to pick apart the press that A&M put against them in that first game. The press didn't really cause us any issues on defense. Obviously, A&M was able to hit plenty of shots in that first game, but the press was not a issue at all for Alabama in that game. It had more to do with going blow for blow from a scoring perspective. Honestly, again, it has to be Texas A&M, of course, but I think Oklahoma is really a sleeper pick here because I think that they are a team that's going to be hungry and like they have the most to prove out of this group, and I think that they're the team that like they're probably right now on the outside looking in, and they may be competing with a team like Auburn for one of those last spots in the tournament. And like if they could rattle off a win against South Carolina A&M and potentially Arkansas to make it to the semifinals, I could definitely see Oklahoma making the tournament with a few wins, right? So like they're a team that I think that their hunger potentially could give you some other things. Obviously the answer has to be A&M. I think that their skill talent's a little higher than some of the others, but like I think that Oklahoma is definitely a sleeper pick if you're talking about that group.
Yeah, I definitely the A&M answer because A&M already played us tough, but I do like the Oklahoma answer because I think, like you said, they're probably the most desperate team in this tournament because Auburn, even with their record, they're getting loved a lot because of their resume metrics and their quality metrics. And then you have Texas, who has a little bit to prove. I think they were like in the last bracketologist that I've seen, they all have them as a 10 seed, which is almost at that like last four buys kind of territory. And then Oklahoma's on the outside looking in, like they're just being considered. So Oklahoma needs these games. If Darius Acuff is available, and I think he will, that potential Alabama Arkansas matchup looks pretty nice in the semifinals. What would be the key, you think, if Alabama is to play Arkansas again? What is the key for Alabama and Arkansas? Like who? Because last time Malik Thomas did well, Billy Richmond had an okay game. DJ Wagner was kind of iffy from the 3-point line, but we know Acuff had 49 points. But Arkansas got into a lot of foul trouble. And I think that's where Alabama won the game was because Arkansas had to play guys that had never played in the SEC. What is the key this time around?
I mean, if you're looking at it from Arkansas's perspective, their key would be potentially having Carter Knox back in that game. Obviously, they only had 7 guys in the first matchup. Having 8 for them would be a little better. I'm still of the mindset that Arkansas can't argue that they just didn't have enough guys because that was Calipari's decision to come into the season with 8 guys. You're allowed 15 and you came into it with 8. That's your problem, not mine. Right? Like Alabama's had 3 guys out for the entire season. And obviously, you've tweeted them out about how many scholarship players we've missed this season. I don't give them a pass because of having that. I think that was your coach's decision, and that's just something you got to deal with. I think that the big key to the game would be a guy in Malik Thomas. Obviously, Darius Acuff, you can't let him go for 49, but I think that all the eyes are going to be on Darius Acuff. I really think the person that had a huge impact on that game in the first matchup was Malik Thomas. When Arkansas got out to the big lead, it was because Thomas was hitting threes and really was on an absolute heater. Alabama got a huge comeback in that game when Malik Thomas came out because I thought his defense was actually pretty good as well. And then when his offense and defense came out, it broke his rhythm. He wasn't the same guy. Then he got into foul trouble, ends up fouling out of the game. Like for me, the answer is Malik Thomas. And the reason it can't, in my mind, isn't Billy Richmond. I know he does a lot to like really energize the team with some of the putback dunks, some of the athleticism type plays. He's just not a guy from the 3-point line that can really make you pay. And so his ability to go on a 12-point run like at a snap of a finger is just not quite as easy because he's more of like a mid-range specialist, an athletic specialist. He's not a guy that, whereas Malik Thomas could hit multiple threes in somebody's face and really, he goes on a solo 12-0 run. That's a whole different game-breaking opportunity type of player. Obviously, Darius Acuff is going to get all the praise, but also, I mean, the question mark is the injury going to hurt him at all, right? As he's working back to game ready shape. Obviously, he would have a game in between that Alabama game. They would have played A&M, Oklahoma, South Carolina prior. So like they would have a game before, but like, is he fully back, the Darius Acuff that had 49 points, or is he still working back into shape? Obviously, Alabama's seen what some of the missing games due to injury does to different guys. And you never know what that's going to be given the fact that he did not play against Mizzou their last game out.
101. That's how many games we've had missed by scholarship players. 101. And when Friday happens, it'll at least be 104. So what Owen and I are going to do now, we're going to go pick every single game of this tournament. Now, when we get to the Alabama games, we're going to break that down a little bit more and tell you what key things to watch in that game and how Alabama can be victorious in those games. And we'll predict the whole tournament. So we're going to start at the top. LSU and Kentucky. I got Kentucky. LSU is just not good. However, LSU did almost just beat A&M at home in their last game. Kentucky, poor Kentucky. If they would have beaten Florida, they would have had a double bye, but they lost. Now they have to play on Wednesday. But poor $22 million roster. I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't think it's close. I think Kentucky wins and probably one of the bigger blowouts of the tournament. I think that obviously we know Kentucky fans take over Nashville, but I think this one's not really going to be super close. Matt McMahon may be coaching his last game for LSU in that one. If I was a betting person, I would say Matt McMahon may not return next season. We will see what the power brokers in Baton Rouge have to say about that one.
Mm-hmm. Next one. This is an interesting one. Auburn and Mississippi State. Auburn needs these games. They can't afford to lose another one. Well, they can afford to lose another one if they win some. But Hubbard beat him last time basically by himself. He had 46 points. And this is Mississippi State's last go-rah this year. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament unless they decide to win 5 games in a row, which is probably not going to happen. I'm going to go with Auburn.
I'm actually going to go with Mississippi State. I think that this Auburn team, unfortunately, has kind of given up on Stephen Pearl. I think that what you saw on the bench during that Alabama game was super disheartening for me if I was an Auburn fan. The thing that I point to, and I mentioned it to you in kind of the pre-show, kind of talking about this, is there was a moment in the Alabama game where Latrell Wrightsell slips and clearly travels, right? It wasn't his fault, but he traveled. The referees don't call it. And Steven didn't even go with the refs, like the Auburn fans. They just felt defeated. And anytime we would hit a big shot, he kind of would shrug his shoulders. It feels like Steven has given up on the team, and in turn, the team has given up on him. I just don't see them getting enough juice. But I agree with you. Auburn has to win this game to have a chance. I think they probably have to win 2 to make the tournament, but I'm going to go with Mississippi State to get a win and to end Auburn's NCAA tournament hopes on Wednesday night sadness, or Wednesday midday sadness, so to speak.
That would be some insane stuff if Mississippi State wins, but I'll be tuning in, of course. Third matchup, we have Ole Miss and Texas. I really wanted to pull the trigger here on Ole Miss beating Texas, but I'm going to go with Texas. Texas is another team that needs these games. So I think winning against Ole Miss prevents having that. I think Ole Miss would be considered a quad 2 loss in a neutral court, but you prevent that potential loss that could knock you out of the bracket.
Yeah, I think Texas needs this win. I think that it'll be a good game. I think that Ole Miss is a pretty good collection of talent. Obviously, one of the worst performing teams based on preseason expectations, but I think Texas has this one.
Yeah, and last one, Oklahoma, South Carolina. We touched on it. Oklahoma needs to win multiple games, and you got to start by beating South Carolina. So I will go with Oklahoma as well. I got all the higher seeds winning.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma wins this one. I think that Oklahoma is a really good team. Obviously, they played Alabama closely, but I think that their record may indicate them being a little worse than they actually are. Obviously, they got a lot of talent on that team, some former Bama guys. Yeah, I think Oklahoma wins that one for sure.
All righty, we'll go to the top. We both said Kentucky, so we got Kentucky and Missouri. I am going to go with I've been back and forth on this one. I do like Missouri, but I'm going to go with Kentucky. Kentucky's going to win two in a row.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kentucky. I'm going to have them getting revenge on the loss that they had to Missouri earlier this season. They lost by 5 earlier this season at home, just after they lost to Alabama to kind of start SEC play. A loss that probably has them on playing on Wednesday at this point. This is a situation where I think that Kentucky just needs this one a little more. I think that Kentucky sets up the third trilogy, so to speak, with Florida. I don't think it's going to go well, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Alrighty, next matchup. So I had Auburn winning. You had Mississippi State winning, playing Tennessee. I think either way, I think we both would pick Tennessee to win, especially if Nate Amon is playing.
Yeah, if Amon's playing, I don't think that one's particularly close. I don't think Mississippi State or Auburn has enough scoring to keep up with Tennessee. And Tennessee's not even the greatest scoring team. I just don't think that Mississippi State or Auburn have quite the offense to keep up.
Alrighty, we both had Texas against Georgia here. I'm going to go with Texas. They did it last year. They won 2 games and made it to Friday. I think they do it again. I'm going to go with Texas. I think Trayvon Mark has a really good showing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Texas as well. Texas won by 20 in their matchup at home this season, and then lost by 11 on the road. So obviously they split this season. Texas is a team that I think just needs it a little more than Georgia does, and I think that that goes a long way when you're talking about these SEC tournament and just tournament games in general. I think the team that needs it more sometimes comes out with a little bit more fire, and that's enough sometimes when you're playing back-to-back games. So I do have Texas winning a second game.
Yeah, because also Georgia, I think Georgia's in. You lose a game, I think Georgia's in. I think they're comfortably in. They're 22-9. I think they're comfortably in. Next one, A&M and Oklahoma. I've been back and forth on this one. I think I'm gonna go with Oklahoma. Upset.
Yeah, I think I am as well. I think that in both Texas and Oklahoma's case, I think that as much as playing from Wednesday hurts your ability to get to the championship game and win it all, it sometimes helps your ability to win a couple of games. You get that momentum after the first win, and somebody maybe is faltering a little bit. I think Oklahoma also played like a 4-point game this season. So I do think that Oklahoma can get the win, and I think that Oklahoma Arkansas game actually becomes a little bit of a fun game, because I think that they can pose some interesting challenges depending upon who wins to face Alabama.
No, I definitely agree with that. So we both have the same quarterfinal matchups. We'll start at the top, Florida and Kentucky. I have Florida by over 15. How much do you have Florida by?
Yeah, Florida by 20. I think that one's not going to be particularly close. They just won by 7 in a game that they were up by much more than that. In their final game of the season, they just played. I think that Florida is substantially better than Kentucky. I think that Florida will get their win over Kentucky by more than the 9-7 they beat them by in the regular season. I think Kentucky runs out of gas.
Next game, we have Vanderbilt and Tennessee. They actually just played this past Saturday at Knoxville. Vanderbilt won. Nate Ament was not available in the game. I think Vanderbilt wins, even if Nate Ament is playing. Nashville crowd behind him. I think Vanderbilt wins.
I have Tennessee. Tennessee won the matchup when Nate Ament played. They lost the matchup when he didn't. I don't think that is a coincidence. I think that Vanderbilt has a smaller margin for error due to how good of a rebounding team and how physical Tennessee is. Especially when you add in Ament, the extra height and stuff. I don't think Vandy matches up super well from that perspective. So I have Tennessee in what should be a great semifinal between Florida and Tennessee.
Now we both have Alabama, Texas. What I'll do here is I'll tell how Alabama can stop Texas, and I want you to talk about how Alabama can beat Georgia, if Georgia's going to be there. For Texas, sure. I think it's going to have to be, do not let Jordan Pope and three-point shooting beat you. Last time Texas shot 42% from the three-point line, which is nowhere near their season average. And I think that really threw Alabama into a slump where they were trying to force a lot of things because Texas was hitting their shots accurately and efficiently. And if Texas is not doing that, I think Alabama wins pretty comfortably. I think this is not going to be a close one. I think Alabama wins by over 10 against Texas.
Yeah, and by Georgia, I think that there's kind of 3 simple keys to the game. One, no stupid turnovers, because the stupid turnovers leading to pick sixes on the other end was a huge issue in the Georgia game the first time. 2, rebound the basketball. Obviously, we saw that what Alabama was able to do on the rebounding side against Auburn. You just got to rebound the basketball. Georgia's not the craziest rebounding team of all time, but like they definitely can beat you, and they did really badly in Athens. And then third, don't let somebody go off, right? Georgia is not a team that's a 45% three-point shooting team, and Alabama made them look like one. They shot 44.8% in the first matchup, made 13 threes, and they let Cannon Catchings go over 50% from 3. You can't let somebody get into that type of rhythm. They obviously have the shooters, but I think that realistically, if you can keep them out of a rhythm, obviously they're going to hit shots. Everybody is. But like just keep them out of being able to take some kind of prayer threes. And that's what Georgia had going in. I think Blue Kane and Catchings both hit some just ridiculous shots because they were in a rhythm. And if you can stop that, I think that Alabama wins. And honestly, in a rematch, I think Alabama wins by 10 plus as well.
Okay, so we both have Alabama advancing to the semifinals. Last game of the quarterfinals, we have Arkansas versus we both have Oklahoma. Arkansas, I don't think they can stay with their guards.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arkansas to get the win. Obviously, this was a pretty close game in the regular season. If I remember correctly, yeah, so Arkansas won by 4 points on the road at Oklahoma this season. The big question mark to this one would be Darius Acuff. Obviously, this would be his first game of the tournament. So that is the big question mark. I think that whether he plays or not, they still could possibly beat Oklahoma. But if he doesn't play, that potentially gets like a desperate Oklahoma, like maybe even playing for their NCAA tournament hopes. You never know what happens in a tournament. I do have Arkansas winning, but I think that it could be a little closer than some people might think.
All right, we'll move to the semis. Top one, Florida, and then you have Tennessee, and then I had Vanderbilt. I think if Florida is to lose in this tournament, I think it's most likely to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt really pushed them the last time. That was like one of the last close games Florida had was at Vanderbilt. But I will stick with Florida. It's hard to pick against them right now.
I would agree that Florida probably wins the game. Part of the reason why I think that Tennessee potentially could give them a little bit of push, especially if Amon is back. I think that Tennessee can match their physicality, and Tennessee potentially can do some extra stuff there. So that's the reason why I do think Tennessee is a team that definitely could give them a little bit more push. The concern that I have with a team like Vanderbilt is I just don't know that they match up from a size perspective against Florida. Obviously, Vandy is a very good team and can shoot the ball well, but I think that Florida's guards have stepped up a little bit here recently. Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland have definitely played better defense over the last month or so, have definitely shot the ball better even. So I hope that Tennessee could push them. I would love to see Florida, have a really tough game, but I do think that Florida probably wins it.
Now we'll go to Alabama and Arkansas, and we'll just talk about Alabama and Arkansas. Last time they played, 117 to 115. Let me pull up the numbers here real quick. LeBaron Philon had 35 points, 7 assists, only 2 turnovers. Aiden Sherrill had one of his better games, 26 points, 13 rebounds. Amari Allen also had a double-double, 19 points, 11 rebounds. Aiden Holloway didn't miss a shot, 15 points. And then on the other side, Arkansas, Darius Acuff had 49 points, 16 of 27 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3, also had 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Billy Richmond had 20 points, 10 of 19 field goal. He didn't attempt 1 3-pointer. That's just his game. And then Malik Thomas, 24 points, 6 of 8 from 3. Like you were saying, he was very efficient from the 3-point line. The problem was Billy Richmond, Malik Thomas, Nick Pringle, and DJ Wagner all fouled out in this game. The only starter that didn't foul out, it was Acuff and then Trayvon Brazil. I just think Arkansas right now is a very dangerous team. And last year, I know Florida last year and Arkansas this year are not really a comparison. Last year's Florida team was much, much better. But they caught fire at the end of the year, and you were kind of looking at them like, oh, this team is probably really, really good. I don't think of Arkansas as an elite status like that Florida team, but I think they're becoming a very dangerous team. And I do think if they play, they're going to pick Alabama off and they're going to go to the championship game. But I know Owen has a differing opinion.
Yeah, so for me, I think that there's a couple of things. I think that the way that John Calipari has played Nate Oates recently, he has stuck with the philosophy of I'm going to build out to the shooters and try to limit the 3-point shot, which inherently means you're going to have a lot of stuff in the interior. That's why Arkansas had so many guys foul out, right? The reason why in the foul discrepancy, and Arkansas fans can freak out about it, but the foul discrepancy is inherently going to be different when your team is taking a ton of mid-range and threes and Alabama is not. I think that is a struggle for Arkansas. I think that Alabama obviously knows the tendencies of a guy like Nick Pringle that can get off his feet. Nate talked about guys using shot fakes and stuff to get people off their feet and being able to use that to their advantage. I think that Alabama is a team that, as you saw against Auburn, does not live and die by the 3. They're a team that's pretty efficient inside the arc, and I think that they match up pretty well with Arkansas. Arkansas obviously has some very good guards, but that is Alabama's kind of bread and butter. I think that Aiden Sherrill matches up pretty well with a guy like Trevon Brazile. I think that overall, this is a team that Alabama just matches up pretty well with. Obviously, Arkansas definitely has an ability to beat Alabama. They have some of the better shooters in the country, and like Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff. But I do think that there would be a situation where I think LeBaron Philon kind of grew up before our eyes when you heard him say post game, Nate Oates told me I don't have to beat the guard on the other side. I just have to play my own game. In some of the bigger matchups, obviously the Georgia game, we want to get out of our mind, but like in some of the other matchups, like on the road at Tennessee, this game against Auburn, he really feels like he's played within himself, not many turnovers. He's like done what he needs to do to lead the team to victory. And I think that that goes a long way. So I do have Alabama beating Arkansas. I think it would be another very good game. I think this is, sub 5 points one way or the other, but I do have Alabama winning that one.
Alrighty, championship game. I would have Florida over Arkansas. I won't really dive into that. But if Alabama is to make it this far, I think they're going to play Florida, as Owen has as well. What is the key to beating Florida? I know everyone has this hard question to ask because it's like, how do you beat a team that's so unstoppable right now? For me, I remember the first game. The two number statistics I remember the most was I think Florida had like 72 paint points and Alabama only had 77 points, which is a crazy stat. But the one I remember the most is Alabama had 18 turnovers and Florida had 2. If you're going to
Yeah.
beat Florida, you got to take care of the ball. I think even with the rebounding, I think Alabama can overcome the rebounding if you're not turning the ball over 16 more times. That's creating 16 more possessions. And I think Florida actually attempted, let me look. Yeah, 16. Alabama had 16 more turnovers and Florida attempted 16 more shots. So it correlates. Even with the offensive rebounding, I think, let me look real quick. Florida had offensive rebounds. Florida had 15. Alabama had 9. That's not crazy. There's been worse this year, especially against Purdue. I think Purdue had like 25 offensive rebounds. And then Tennessee had over 20 as well. So there's been worse this year. We don't have Bediako for this game, but I don't think that's necessarily a make or break thing. It didn't help the last time. But I think turnovers has to be the key. What about you, Owen?
Yeah, I think it's turnovers, but I also think that and this is a situation that Alabama has run into against Florida multiple times. Alabama's guards and bigs have to know you are going to get contact in the paint against Florida's bigs. They play physical, like they go straight up, they don't get a ton of fouls. You're not going to cause them to foul out, but they are physical. So this is a standpoint where as much as turnovers matters, absolutely. Nate also talks about when you have your shot blocked and it's going back the other direction because you were weak and tried to do some like fancy backboard thing and Thomas Houck slaps it to the other side and they have a run out dunk, that's just as bad as a turnover, even though it's not a turnover on the stat sheet, right? Like, so the 18 turnovers obviously is a big deal. Alabama would need to force some more turnovers themselves. I think that they've done a better job of that, especially since that Florida game. I think that they've done a much better job forcing the other team to turn over the basketball. So that would be a key. But for me, the key is finishing around the rim. Obviously, Alabama generally, actually, I think they hit 14 threes against Florida, which is good. I mean, they have some open shots that they're able to hit. As you said, the offensive rebounds wasn't pretty, but they lost by 6. We lost by a lot more than that at Tennessee, as you mentioned, right? Like the big difference in that game was the insane points in the paint, and I think the Alabama's points in the paint was so bad because of how soft we went up with the basketball. You just have to be more physical around the rim. And then I think the other thing and the super important thing is when you go up with the basketball, expect to have contact and expect that the shot is going to potentially be blocked. You can't do some finesse finger roll. You got to go up strong. So in my mind, that's a guy like Amari Allen going up for a dunk instead of some just like lay it in off the glass, right? Like it's just how you attack the paint. You have to attack like you did against Auburn. Like Aiden Sherrill went up for a powerful dunk. Amari Allen goes up for a dunk. That's how you have to attack against Florida because if you go up soft, they're going to just attack you with the physicality. And oftentimes they're doing that without fouling. And it's just a long night when you play Florida.
All right, last question for this. If Alabama is to make it to the SEC tournament final and lose, do you think that's enough to get a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament?
I think that it is, especially if Alabama has to beat Arkansas on the way there. I think that the real question mark would be if Arkansas falls, will it be enough? Because the team that would be, Alabama would play instead of Arkansas would not potentially be a quad one game. It would be close. It still might be, but like I just don't know if the win would be quite as good as like a second win over Arkansas. But in general, I do think that if Alabama makes the SEC tournament championship game, I think that they are a 3 seed. I don't think that a win in the SEC tournament championship game affects that. I think that, they're a 3 seed one way or the other. The question mark really becomes if they lose kind of in your instance where they lose in the semifinals, are they a 3 or a 4 seed? And that may come down to what happens elsewhere across the country with the rest of the 3 and 4 seeds. I don't know that we really would have all the information in front of us to know what that would look like.
The good news is, thank you for that last tidbit, Owen. Tomorrow night, I will be doing a bracketology video outlining a rooting guide for Alabama fans this week about what you want to root for Alabama to get a 3 seed, and also comparing resumes with other teams on the 3 to 4 line. But last thing before we go, Owen, where can we find your content again?
Yeah, here on YouTube, Barnes on Bama, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. Like I said, multiple videos a week. I know I'm gonna do. I don't know if you're gonna do one, but I am gonna do a live stream Sunday as the bracketology gets released to kind of talk about what that is. If you're not doing one, feel free to join me. Like I said, we're gonna do one to kind of break down what Alabama's path looks like. I think that it should be a really fun March Madness up ahead. I'm super excited. Very curious to see how Nashville goes this weekend. I'm not going to be in attendance, unfortunately. Going to play golf with some buddies in Louisiana, but of course, I will be paying very close attention and watching all the games that Alabama will be a part of.
Yeah, the Roll Tide Rewind, we have a bracketology video ready once the tournament is announced, and we will be ready to go live, and we're going to talk about it as well. But I appreciate the invite, Owen, but I definitely will be collabing with you probably in the next few weeks, I would assume. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching the video. And like I said, have a good rest of your night and have a good rest of your week, and roll Tide.